What's going on? It's Mando Crusader, and welcome to another MTGA video. This time, we're taking a look at historic Rakdos Sacrifice. Now, I know that the sexy version of Sacrifice in historic right now is Yund Citadel. However, I decided to try and be a little bit different and trying to play in Rakdos colors. Also, it definitely has nothing to do with the fact that I don't have enough wild cards to afford the Yund mana base. But I've actually found it to be a really, really fun deck, and it was an archetype that was benefited from Historic Horizons with the addition of Yawgmoth Thran Physician as another sack outlet. But we'll get to that when we get into the deck tech, which is right about now anyway. So yeah, this deck, it's really fun. It can, and what I like about it is it can be both a grindy mid-range deck that goes the distance with your opponent and can eventually kill them after clearing their board for the 10th time with Mayhem Devil, or it can be a super aggressive deck that gets 2 Dread Horde Butchers, a Mayhem Devil, and Cat Oven onto the field and kills you by turn 6. It's really, really versatile, and yeah, let's get into the deck here. So this deck can be split into 4 categories: lands, the sacrifice fodder, the sacrifice outlets, and Mayhem Devil. So he gets a category all of his own. The land situation is your very, very typical Rakdos mana base. We've got your shock lands, your pathways, castle lock veins, swamps, mountains, a check land, 3 fabled passages, which work even better in this deck because cracking a fabled passage counts as a sacrifice trigger for Mayhem Devil, so that's really nice. We do have 1 unique piece of land in this deck. It's a piece of land that every sacrifice deck runs, and that is Phyrexian Tower. It's a legendary land. You can either tap it to add a colorless mana, or sacrifice a creature, tap it, and add 2 black mana to your mana pool. This is how you get, like, Mayhem Devil out on turn 2. This is how you get Yawgmoth Thran Physician out on turn 2. It's, it can do some pretty degenerate stuff with the right opening hand. I'll put it that way. Next up, we have the sack fodder, the things that we're going to be sacrificing. We got 4 copies of Cauldron Familiar, the cat of the titular cat oven combination. Basically, you play the cat, it drains your opponent for 1 life, it gives you 1 life, then you stick the cat in the oven creates a food, you sacrifice the food to bring back the cat, and you do this ad infinitum until your opponent is dead, or they resign out of sheer frustration. And I will say every one of those sacrifice triggers obviously triggers Mayhem Devil. You see why he has a category all of his own. So 4 copies of Cauldron Familiar, obviously. We got 4 copies of Shambling Ghast, a really great piece of sack fodder that AFR brought along. When this thing dies, you either create a treasure token ramping you, and whenever you sacrifice it, you trigger Mayhem Devil, or you can kill one of your opponent's 1 toughness creatures. Really, really versatile piece of sacrifice fodder. Really, really nice. We have 2 copies of Scrap Heap Scrounger. This, unlike Shambling Ghast or Butcher, and well, not Cauldron Familiar. Cauldron Familiar comes back, but only if you do it in a very specific way. So even kind of unlike Cauldron Familiar, Scrap Heap Scrounger is a piece of sack fodder which can be brought back. It can be recurred from the graveyard. For 1 and a black, exile another creature card from your graveyard, return Scrap Heap Scrounger from your battlefield to the from your graveyard to the battlefield. In addition to that, allowing it to be sacrificed multiple times, it's also a pretty good beater. It's a 3/2 for 2 mana. Really, it's just an all-around pretty good card. And finally, we have Dreadhorde Butcher. This is normally this is a really, really good card in Sacrifice, but normally Yund has too many other things going on to play it. But since we're in Rakdos, we get to take advantage of it. So for a black and a red, you get a 1/1 zombie warrior with haste that whenever it deals damage, combat damage, to a player or planeswalker, put a 1/1 counter on Dreadhorde Butcher, and when it dies, it deals damage equal to its power on to any target. So this can be used to kill a creature, it can be used to kill a planeswalker, it can be used to just deal 2 or 3 damage, or even more if you manage to grow it more, to your opponent's face. It's just a really all-around versatile card, and it's really, really nice. It's an absolutely great card. Next up, we have the sack outlets. So we've gone through the things that we're sacrificing. How do we sacrifice them? So first, we've got Witch's Oven, Cat Oven. I already explained the interaction there. It can be used on other things as well. So even if it's not optimal to sacrifice your, I don't know, your Priest of Forgotten Gods to Witch's Oven, if it's being targeted by removal, you may as well get a food token for it, right? So that's that. We have 4 copies of Village Rites for that extra card advantage. We have 3 copies of Priest of Forgotten Gods. This is just a value generator, really. Sacrifice 2 other creatures. Any number of target players each lose 2 life and sacrifice a creature. You add 2 black mana and draw a card. This is just, it's so many sacrifice triggers for Mayhem Devil. You get 2 of your own. Your opponent has to sacrifice a creature, so that's a 3rd trigger. Then they lose 2 life. You get extra mana. You get to draw a card. It can keep your turn going. There's just so much value packed into one card. You got 2 copies of Woe Strider. Create a goat. You can sacrifice another creature to scry 1, and they can escape from your graveyard for 3 and 2 black, and it escapes as a 5/4. This is one of the well, don't get me wrong, it's a good card, but compared to all of the other sack outlets, it's on the lower end. It's not as bad, quote unquote, as Witch's Oven, but scrying 1 and only getting 1 trigger from Mayhem Devil it's on the lower end of the sack leaderboard, I suppose you could call it. That's why there's only 2 of them in the deck. Don't get me wrong, it's still a great card, especially for 3 mana. It's just when compared to Priest, or when compared to the next card we're gonna talk about, it's on the lower end of the sack ladder. Speaking of the other card, this is the new edition from Modern Horizons, or not Modern Horizons, Historic Horizons, Yawgmoth Thran Physician. For 2 and 2 black, we get a legendary human cleric, who is a 2/4. It has protection from humans, so if you're playing against humans, which is a really big deck in the format right now, humans can't kill Yawgmoth in combat, so that's a nice boon. Pay 1 life, you can sacrifice another creature, put a -1/-1 counter up to 1 target creature, and draw a card. And for 2 black, you can discard a card and proliferate. This triggers Mayhem Devil. Obviously, the sacrifice. It can kill creatures, especially in conjunction with the sack from Mayhem Devil. It draws you cards. It's just an absolutely great engine. You definitely want this on the board. It's a really, really great sack engine for the deck. And paying 1 life is obviously, like, nothing, right? Especially when you're gaining 1 life from Cauldron Familiar, doing the cat oven thing. Finally, we have a couple of miscellaneous cards here. We got 3 copies of Claim the Firstborn, because why sack your creatures if you can sack your opponent's creatures? We got a single copy of Kolaghan's Command, because it's just a Swiss Army knife of value, and I love it. And finally, a single copy of Agadim's Awakening. Most of the time, you're probably playing this as the land, Agadim the Undercrypt. However, this can help you recover from a late-game board wipe, helping you rebuild your board, and if you're facing control, which is big in the meta right now, that's probably a decent thing to have. Finally, you've got the sideboard. We got 2 copies of Soul Guide Lantern for graveyard strategies, 2 copies of Doomblade in case we need a little bit of extra removal. Like, don't get me wrong, this deck deals with creature decks really, really well. I've consistently board wiped, like, decks that generate 4/4 tokens every turn with this deck, but a little extra, sometimes you just need a little bit of extra removal, and Doomblade unconditionally hits anything as long as it isn't black. So that's really nice. We got 2 copies of Abrade to deal with artifacts, 2 copies of Angrath's Rampage, which is a really, really interesting card in this deck. Because it hits artifacts, it hits creatures, it hits planeswalkers. However, the opponent has to sacrifice those things, which causes a Mayhem Devil trigger. So this is in case you just need to deal with planeswalkers, need some extra artifact removal that Abrade, like, can't handle by itself. And finally, we have the anti-Jeskai control package. A full playset of Thoughtseize, a single copy of Fry, and 2 copies of Chandra, Torch of Defiance. You'll notice the sideboard is really leaning heavily on this, because creature matchups and stuff like that, we can easily deal with. But control, if we don't get stuff out on curve, if we get a bunch of sack fodder on the field, but nothing to sack it with, because it's all getting, like, controlled, we're sort of dead. So we really need a game plan against control, and we have one in the sideboard. Finally, I suppose the last card to talk about is the thing that holds the entire deck together, like the reason to play it, Mayhem Devil. For 3 mana, you get a 3/3 beater that also has some really good text in whatever a player sacrifices a permanent. Mayhem Devil deals 1 damage to any target. And, so yeah, that's any sack trigger. So any of our sacrifice options, the sacrifice trigger from Angrath's Rampage, ours and our opponent's Fabled Passages, our opponent sacrificing something, any sacrifice trigger, we get to deal 1 damage to any target. It's just such a good card, and it's the reason to play the archetype in general. It's the reason to play sacrifice in general. So, yeah, that's the deck. Before I take it out for a spin, though, I just want to say that if you enjoy this content, be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Additionally, comment any decks you'd like me to play in either this or MTGO in the comments. I take deck requests. I also take game requests if you want me to play anything specific. So, yeah, with all that said and out of the way, let's get into some matches and see how this deck does. Alright. Alright, let's see what we have here. Alright. Oh my goodness, this is the hand. This is the turn 2 Yawgmoth hand. Oh my goodness, that's a keeper right there. That is an absolute keeper. So our opponent is playing Gruul. If my computer would stop frying itself, that would be nice. There we go, alright. Sylvan Ranger getting a little ramp going on. Phyrexian Tower. Sacrifice a creature. Create a treasure token. Turn 2 Yawgmoth Thran position. And we have the Claim the Firstborn to boot. So we can sack the Sylvan Ranger. Or we can die to removal. I suppose dying to removal is an option. It'd be nice if we drawed something other than land, but, let's see here. Well, we could play Cauldron Familiar, but it probably gets removed, so I'm gonna hold back another turn. This is probably the turn where they make their big play, though. I would imagine, maybe? Yeah, there it is. There's Nib. Let's see here. Yeah, I think we're just dead at this point. Yeah. Okay, so this is a deck that requires Doomblade. Let's see, do we need any Thoughtseize? Do we need Thoughtseize? I think we should be fine without it. Maybe a Chandra? I think this seems like a situation for Chandra. Right. Let's get rid of some of the village rights and claim the firstborn. It's so hard cutting stuff from this deck because there's everything is good. Everything in the deck is good. Maybe only one Chandra. And we can cut a Yawgmoth. He's a legendary. No, definitely not cut a Yawgmoth. We can cut a village rights, I meant to say. I would like to play first. We'll keep this. We've got Mayhem Devil in hand. We just need one of our sack outlets. And I'd like to keep Mayhem Devil safe in our hand until we get one. fight with fire on the Cauldron Familiar. There goes the Witch's Oven. There's our sack outlet. Does our opponent have another piece of removal? They do. At least we can do Cat Oven now. And that was a waste of their turn. Meanwhile, it is a boon for us. I would rather have the Mayhem Devil out. Getting Cat Oven online is consolidation. A nice consolation prize. Actually, wait. We can, swing for 3 before we do that. Just create a treasure token, grab 2 cards. And put out another Shambling Ghast. Planeswalker?
Yep. The victory looked good.
Oh! Dang it, I forgot to, forgot to, do the Cat Oven. That probably won't cost us. Let's see here. Right. Well, we have lethal next turn. And there's the concede. Alright, so I think we've got a decent game plan going here. I think we've got a good chance of winning this here. We didn't even need the extra removal. Alright. Do we get to go first? A second time? We do not. Never lucky. Always on the draw. Well, we do have a piece. We are on the draw, and we do technically have all the mana we need. Although Blood Crypt is much more affordable than Naganin's Awakening. Ondrek's Apprentice. Let's see here. Okay, let's just quickly remove the Quandrex Apprentice. Sylvan Ranger. Alright. Do we play the Mayhem Devil now? Or do we wait a turn? I think we play it now, maybe bait the removal that's meant for Yawgmoth. Because while both are important, if we can bait one of his removal spells, that would be extremely nice. see, there's a Shamlias, create a treasure, remove the Sylvan Ranger. Swing for 4. And then next turn, if we can survive that long, we've got a nice, hasty Dreadhorde Butcher. Looks like our opponent is ramping? No! Very interesting. Let's put out our Dreadhorde Butcher. Swing in. And wait. See what our opponent has in store. We got lethal next turn. And that's game. That is game. It was a bit of a rocky game 1. He had that removal. That turn 2 removal for our turn 2 Yawgmoth. But still, this deck, when it gets going, it's just completely overwhelming. You can't answer it. You just can't answer it. Alright. Alright, let's play first. And we've got Cat Oven in hand. Ready to cause pain and suffering. If possible, we want to save the checklands for Mr. Mayhem Devil. Well, not the checklands, the Fabled Passages, so we can get those Mayhem Devil triggers, I should say. Conspicuous Snoop. So we are playing Gobos. Honestly, the first time that I've seen goblins in best of 3 in a very long time. And we are currently running a little bit behind their engine. But if we can survive this next turn without them making any big plays, I think we should be able to curtail them. And it's good that the next card up was a mountain so that they didn't get the conspicuous Snoop triggers. Alright, there's the Goblin Chieftain. Block the worst of it. And it gives us open season to attack with our Scrap Heap Scrounger next turn. Alright. Put out the Mayhem Devil. And start the board wipe process. Just board wipe, go burr. Throw out a swamp. Attack with our Scrap Heap Scrounger and pass the turn. And at this point, the Sacrifice engine is up and running. 3 conspicuous Snoops. Honestly surprising. Let's just clear one of... There we go. Alright. Yeah. I mean, Our engine was up and running. There was literally nothing they could do. I think just literally 2 copies of Doomblade. I think that's all we need. Just 2 copies of Doomblade, in case we need a little extra removal. This deck is really, it's so good against tribal decks. Once the engine is going, you can literally just board wipe them, like, without even a second thought. It's so good. We are on the draw. And yeah, this looks fine. Well, I wasn't expecting that. Huh. Actually unexpected. Rakdos Goblins. Well, there goes one of our Mayhem Devils. Unfortunately. Okay. This is a considerably different line than what was taken last time. Considerably different. Let's see what's on the top of our deck. That's extremely good. That is, in fact, kind of just what the doctor ordered. I didn't actually mean to do that, by the way. That was a legit accident. But at least we got those 2 Phyrexian, those 2 lands off the top of our deck. And we board wiped the opponent, so that's good. And Muxus is coming. There he is. Yikes! Lots of land. Let's escape the Woe Strider. Keep the Mayhem Devil there on the off chance we can get it back. He does have Muxus. Yep, there we go. Alright. Yep. He was able to combo off. That's fine. I honestly did not expect the Thoughtseize. I did not expect the Thoughtseize. That all would have been a lot better if I had my Mayhem Devil out there. But that's fine. We didn't. Everything's cool. I will go first. put out the Shambling Ghast. No turn 1 Thoughtseize. Honestly, a little disappointed. Nope. Oh, looky there. There's the Thoughtseize. Alright. Let's grab that. We got a Cauldron Familiar on top of our deck. And we can grab it along with a Dreadhorde Butcher. Very cool. Along with 2 Dreadhorde Butchers. Krenko Mob Boss coming in and creating a bunch of tokens while he's at it. Alright. Thankfully, I have a plan. That was a mistake. That was a mistake on the part of our opponent. Kill that. Do we want this now? I don't think so. Kill that. Definitely not. And kill the Krenko. Definitely not. And end the turn. So he killed their 2 big threats. And they can remove their my Cauldron Familiar all they want. And that's just what the doctor ordered. That is exactly what the doctor ordered. We are going to end the turn. And yeah, it's game. I was very cautious to end the turn there, but it was the right choice, seeing as we can use our Woe Strider at any time. And they just had too little health. That Thoughtseize probably wasn't the best play for them at that time. They just lost too much health there. So, that was Rakdos Sacrifice. Like I said, it's really fun. It is effective once the engine gets going. It absolutely demolishes creature decks. And it has a pretty good sideboard plan against control. We didn't run into any control today, but it still is a pretty effective sideboard plan, in my opinion. So, thank you all for watching. Remember, like and subscribe if you enjoy this content. There is more of it to come. And, yeah, that's about it. See you around.